I didn't know that a simple dinner would turn into a silent war, but that night changed everything. It was the night I realized my mother-in-law wasn't just cruel in words or behavior, she was dangerous. In that house, nothing was ever accidental. Not the smiles, not the silence, and certainly not the food placed carefully in front of me. The dining room looked calm, almost perfect. My mother-in-law, Alina, sat at the head of the table like she always did, composed and in control. My husband Daniel was beside me, distracted as usual, talking business with his father. Across from me sat Vivian, Daniel's sister, the golden child. Alina adored her, Vivian knew it, everyone did. Then Alina gestured toward my plate. "This is something special," she said. "A recipe I learned from a chef in Europe. I made it just for you." Her voice was warm, but her eyes didn't match it. They never did. The salad looked flawless. Fresh greens, glossy dressing, neatly arranged, too neat. When I leaned in slightly, a smell hit me. Not rotten, not sour, just wrong, sharp, chemical, subtle enough that anyone else would ignore it. I felt it in my stomach before my mind caught up. Alina watched me closely as I lifted my fork. She always did when she wanted something from me. Daniel didn't notice. He never noticed these things. Vivian was already eating, laughing lightly, completely relaxed. "Try it," Alina said. "I had you in mind the whole time." I smiled. That was my mistake for years, smiling to survive. I brought the fork close to my mouth but stopped. The smell grew stronger. My instincts screamed. Alina's gaze didn't move. She was waiting. Vivian finished her salad quickly and set her fork down with a satisfied smile, already reaching for her glass. She looked pleased, proud even, like she had passed some invisible test. That's when I made my decision. I lowered my fork, adjusted my napkin, and shifted in my chair. My movement was casual, slow. As I reached forward, I switched the plates, just a small motion. Quiet, invisible to everyone at the table. Everyone except Alina. Our eyes met for half a second. Her expression didn't change, but something behind it did. She knew. I picked up my fork again and took a bite from the plate that had been meant for Vivian. It tasted normal, fresh, safe. Across from me, Vivian had already taken a large bite from my former plate. The conversation continued. Glasses clinked, someone laughed, Alina stopped eating altogether. I waited. At first, nothing happened. Then Vivian shifted in her chair. She frowned slightly, like she was confused by her own body. She took another sip of water, then another. "I'm fine," she said quickly when Daniel glanced at her. She wasn't. Her hands began to shake, just a little. Then her breathing changed. Alina leaned back in her chair, watching her daughter with quiet focus. Vivian stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She didn't say anything. She just ran. The sound of retching echoed down the hallway. Silence fell over the table. I took a slow sip of water and looked at Alina. "Delicious salad," I said softly. "You should really share that recipe." She didn't answer. But in her eyes, I saw it clearly. She hadn't meant for Vivian to eat that plate. And now she knew I knew. The silence after Vivian ran out was heavier than shouting would have been. No one moved. No one spoke. Alina stayed seated, her posture calm, her face composed, as if this were an expected interruption rather than a crisis. Daniel stood halfway from his chair, uncertain. "Should I?" "No," Alina said smoothly. "She just needs a moment." That was when I knew for sure. She wasn't worried. She was managing damage. Daniel hesitated, then sat back down, confused but obedient. His father avoided eye contact with everyone. I stayed quiet, watching Alina the same way she was watching the hallway. Minutes passed, the sounds from the bathroom didn't stop. Daniel finally pushed back his chair. "I'm checking on her." He disappeared down the hall. Alina lifted her glass, took a small sip, then placed it back down untouched. Her eyes returned to me. "You didn't eat much," she said. "I ate enough," I replied. Her lips curved slightly. "Sensitive stomach." "No," I said, "good instincts." Her fingers tightened around the stem of her glass. "Just a fraction. Enough." Daniel returned, his face pale. "She's really sick, dizzy, shaking. She says her heart feels strange." Alina stood at last, placing a hand on his arm. "She'll be fine. I'll call our doctor if needed." Vivian appeared moments later, leaning against the doorway. Her face was drained of color. Her confidence was gone. She looked at the table, then at Alina, then at me. "What was in that salad?" she asked. The room froze. Alina turned slowly, concern perfectly arranged on her face. "Darling, it was just food. Perhaps an allergy you didn't know about." "I don't have allergies," Vivian said. Her voice wasn't angry, it was unsettled. Alina smiled. "Stress can do strange things." Vivian looked at me again. "Did you feel anything?" I met her eyes. "No." That answer changed something. I saw it happen. Doubt, not about me, about her mother. Daniel frowned. "Mom, are you sure?" "I'm sure," Alina cut in. "Let's not turn this into drama." Drama, that's what she called it when things slipped from her control. Vivian swallowed hard. It didn't feel like food poisoning. Alina's smile thinned. "You're overtired." Charles cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should let this go for tonight." That was his way, silence as protection. Vivian nodded slowly, but she didn't look convinced. Daniel guided her out, his arm around her shoulders. As soon as they left, Alina looked at me fully. "You're smarter than you appear," she said. I smiled. "You're sloppier than you think." Her eyes hardened. "Be careful." I stood. I was. She watched me walk away, and I knew something important had happened. Not just the plate, not just the sickness. For the first time, Alina had failed in front of witnesses. And she would not forgive that. Upstairs, the house felt quieter than before. Too quiet, like something holding its breath. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, no one slept. Daniel lay beside me, awake but silent. I could feel it in the way his body stayed tense, his breathing shallow. He wanted to ask questions. He didn't want the answers. Silence had always been his safest choice. By morning, the house had reset itself. Breakfast was served. Polite voices returned. Alina acted as if nothing had happened. Vivian arrived late. She looked steadier, but something in her was off. She didn't meet her mother's eyes right away. That alone was new. "I trust everyone is feeling better today," Alina said. Vivian nodded, "Mostly." Alina smiled. "Good, yesterday was unfortunate." Unfortunate, not alarming, not concerning, just inconvenient. I watched Vivian's hands as she reached for her cup. She hesitated before touching it. Alina noticed. Her smile paused for half a second. "Are you still feeling unwell?" Alina asked. Vivian glanced at me, then back at her mother. "I keep thinking about last night." Alina tilted her head. "Thinking about what?" "The salad." The word landed hard. Daniel stiffened. Charles folded his paper slowly. Alina didn't react immediately. She waited, measuring. "What about it?" Vivian swallowed. "It only affected me." "That happens," Alina said calmly. Vivian shook her head. "But she ate too." She gestured toward me, "and she was fine." Alina's eyes flicked to my face. People react differently. I leaned forward, or plates were different. The air changed instantly. Daniel turned to me. "What do you mean?" Alina spoke before I could answer. "Enough, this is turning into imagination." Vivian looked between us. "Were the plates different?" Silence stretched. I didn't answer, I didn't need to. Alina already had. "You're tired," Alina said firmly. "You should rest instead of questioning everything." Vivian's voice dropped. "I don't feel tired, I feel like something's being hidden." Alina stood. "This conversation ends now." Authority, finality, the tone she used when she expected obedience. Vivian didn't move. "I need to know," she said. Alina stepped closer. "Know what?" "If you meant that food for her." Daniel looked at his mother sharply. "Mom." For the first time, Alina lost control of the room. "Just slightly." Her voice lowered. "You're letting yourself be influenced." Vivian's face tightened. "By her?" "Yes." I smiled faintly. "By reality." Alina turned to me. "You think you're clever." "I think you miscalculated." Charles stood abruptly. "That's enough." Alina didn't argue. She didn't have to, she simply looked at Vivian. Later, when the house emptied, Vivian found me in the hallway. "I know you switched the plates," she said. I didn't deny it. Her hands trembled. "That means..." It means she didn't care who got hurt, I said, only who she wanted punished. Vivian pressed her lips together. Why you? Because I don't belong to her. She nodded slowly. Neither do I anymore. From the top of the stairs, Elinor watched us. She didn't interrupt. She didn't smile. She was already planning her next move. Vivian didn't speak to Elinor for the rest of the day. That alone was dangerous. Elinor noticed everything. Silence, hesitation, distance. She had built her control on awareness, and now one piece of the system was drifting out of place. I felt it before I saw it. The shift, the house didn't feel neutral anymore. It felt alert. That evening, as I passed through the dining room, I noticed the maid lingering near the cleared table. She wasn't cleaning. She was studying the plates. I slowed. She picked up the plate Vivian had used the night before and turned it slightly, inspecting the surface. When she sensed me behind her, she stiffened. Did you notice something? I asked quietly. She didn't look up. I only do what I'm told. That wasn't an answer. I waited. Her voice dropped. That plate was prepared separately. My pulse tightened. Separately how? She hesitated, then spoke quickly. Different dressing, stronger smell. She watched it closely. I repeated. The maid nodded once, very closely. That was all she said. Then she stepped away as if nothing had happened. I went upstairs knowing something important had just been confirmed. This wasn't new behavior. This was a pattern. Later, I heard voices in the hallway. Elinor and Charles. You should have been more careful, Charles said. You weren't the one being tested, Elinor replied. You crossed a line. She needed to learn her place. She's Daniel's wife. She's a threat. I stopped just before the corner, unseen. She's paying attention, Charles said. That makes her dangerous. Elinor laughed quietly. She's predictable. I stepped forward. Elinor turned instantly, her expression smoothing into calm. There you are. I heard enough, I said. Charles looked away. Elinor met my gaze. You think you've gained something. I think you've revealed too much. Her smile sharpened. Careful. I leaned closer. You already were, and still failed. That night, Vivian came to my room. She knows I'm doubting her, she said. She warned me about you. What did she say? That you're turning me against my own family. And do you believe her? Vivian shook her head. Not anymore. She sat down, breathing unevenly. She wasn't worried when I got sick. She was waiting. Yes, I said, for confirmation. Vivian looked up. She would have let me suffer. Yes. And she meant it for you. Yes. Silence settled between us. She's not going to stop, Vivian said. I know. She's going to try to remove you. I know. Vivian's voice hardened. Then she won't be the only one watching anymore. That was the moment Elinor lost something she couldn't replace. Not control. Loyalty. And she didn't even know it yet. Elinor moved quietly after that. No confrontations, no raised voices, just distance and observation. That was when she was most dangerous. Daniel started noticing small things. Conversations that stopped when he entered the room. Doors closing too quickly. Elinor watching him longer than usual, as if measuring his loyalty. He asked me one night, did I miss something? I answered honestly, you ignored it. He didn't argue. Vivian kept her distance from both of us, but not in the way Elinor expected. She watched now, listened. She started asking questions that had never mattered to her before. Why certain people stopped visiting the house? Why staff members never stayed long? Why arguments ended only when Elinor decided they were over? One evening, Elinor called Vivian into her office. The door stayed closed for over an hour. When Vivian came out, her face was tight, controlled. She told me you're manipulating me, Vivian said later, that you planned this from the start. And she said if I side with you, I lose everything. That's how she keeps people, I said. Fear first, love second. Vivian nodded slowly. She thinks I'll choose her. I didn't respond. That night, Daniel confronted his mother. I heard the argument from the hallway. You're pushing people, he said. I'm protecting this family, Elinor replied. By poisoning dinner. Silence. Then Alina spoke softly. You don't understand what's at stake. What's at stake? Daniel asked. Control, I thought. Alina didn't answer him. She didn't need to. She changed tactics. The next morning, documents appeared on Daniel's desk. Business concerns, legal complications, subtle pressure. Alina didn't attack me directly. She went through him. Vivian noticed. She's isolating you, Vivian said to Daniel. She does this when she's threatened. Daniel looked shaken. Why would she feel threatened? Vivian hesitated, then said, because she's losing. That was when Alina made her mistake. She called a family meeting. She wanted witnesses. She wanted control restored publicly. Instead, she exposed herself. She spoke about loyalty, about trust, about outsiders. And every word confirmed what we already knew. I watched the room carefully. Charles didn't defend her. Daniel didn't agree with her. Vivian didn't look at her at all. Alina felt it. You think this is coincidence, she said sharply, that all this tension appeared after she arrived. Vivian stood. It appeared when people stopped being afraid. Alina stared at her daughter. Something broke. Not loudly. Not visibly. But permanently. And Alina understood then that the problem wasn't me anymore. It was that the house was no longer listening to her alone. Vivian changed after that meeting. Not openly, not in ways Alina could immediately punish, but the obedience was gone, the automatic agreement. The quiet loyalty. Alina sensed it, and when she sensed weakness, she moved fast. She started separating us. Daniel was pulled into endless work discussions, urgent calls, sudden trips, anything to keep him occupied and dependent. Vivian was drawn back into private conversations, framed as concern, as care. Alina never accused, she suggested. You look tired. You seem confused. You're letting stress affect your judgment. Vivian told me later, she keeps asking if I'm sure I'm okay. Like she's waiting for me to admit something's wrong with me. That's how she rewrites reality, I said. She makes doubt feel like illness. One afternoon, Vivian came to my room without knocking. She warned me, she said. About what? About you leaving suddenly. My chest tightened. How suddenly? She said sometimes, people decide to go quietly when they know they've lost. I understood immediately. Alina was preparing an exit that wouldn't look forced. She's planning something, Vivian said. I don't know what, but she's calm. That scares me. That night, I followed Alina. She went to her office after everyone had gone to bed. She stayed there longer than usual. When she left, she locked the door carefully and checked the hallway before walking away. The next morning, Charles avoided me completely. That confirmed it. I confronted him that evening. She's holding something over you, I said. He didn't deny it. She has records, he admitted quietly, on everyone. Where? He hesitated. Her office. Does Daniel know? He shook his head. He can't. Because she made sure he'd lose everything if he did. That was when the shape of it became clear. Alina didn't just control behavior, she controlled outcomes. I told Vivian everything. She went pale. She's been doing this our whole lives. Yes. She always knew what to say, what to threaten, what to promise. Yes. Vivian's hands shook. Then we can't wait. That night, Alina called Vivian into her room again. Vivian went, but this time she recorded the conversation. Alina spoke calmly. She always did when she thought she was winning. You're being influenced. She's dividing us. If she stays, things will get ugly. What do you mean by ugly? Vivian asked. Alina paused. Then, softly, people disappear from this family all the time. You just stop hearing about them. That was the proof. When Vivian played the recording for me, we didn't speak for a long time. She's not bluffing, Vivian said. No, I replied, she's warning us. Vivian looked at me, her fear turning into resolve. Then we stop reacting, she said. We act. And for the first time, Alina wasn't the one planning ahead. We stopped speaking openly after that. Alina was always closest when she thought no one was watching. Words traveled fast in that house. Silence traveled faster. Vivian and I communicated through fragments, short sentences, looks, timing, enough to understand each other without leaving anything exposed. Alina sensed the shift. She began watching me directly now, no longer hiding it. Her questions became sharper. Where were you this afternoon? Who were you speaking to? You seem distracted lately. I answered calmly every time, gave her nothing. Daniel felt it too. The pressure on him increased. Meetings, legal concerns, warnings framed as advice. Alina made sure he stayed busy and unsure. One evening, Alina made her move. She called me into her office. The door closed behind me. She didn't offer a seat. You're clever, she said, but clever people make mistakes when they get confident. I'm not confident, I replied. I'm cautious. She smiled slightly. You should be afraid. I was, I said, before I understood you. Her expression hardened. You think you're protected, she said. You're not. I think you've underestimated who's watching now. She stepped closer. Vivian will choose her family. She already did. That was the first time Alina showed irritation. She's confused, Alina said. I'll fix that. She's recording you, I replied. Silence hit like a strike. Alina recovered quickly, but the pause told me everything. You won't leave this house with anything that hurts me, she said. I already have. She laughed softly. You don't know how deep this goes. I know enough. She leaned in. Then you know what happens next. That night my access changed. Passwords failed, accounts locked, invitations withdrawn, subtle isolation. Alina was cutting me out piece by piece. Vivian noticed. She's moving fast, she said. That means she's scared. She's trying to force a mistake, I replied. The mistake came sooner than expected. A message arrived on Daniel's phone. Anonymous, attached documents, claims, accusations, all aimed at me. Daniel confronted me immediately. She says you're planning to leave, he said, that you're hiding things. I handed him the recording. He listened. He didn't speak afterward. That silence was different. Later that night, Alina confronted Daniel. I didn't hear the words, I heard the outcome. The door slammed. Daniel came to me and said one sentence. She lied. That was the moment Alina lost her strongest shield. She realized it too. The next morning, she stopped pretending. You should pack, she told me calmly. This house isn't safe for you anymore. I smiled. That's funny, I said, because now it isn't safe for you. And for the first time, Alina didn't answer back. Alina didn't ask me to leave again. That was how I knew she was done warning, and had started planning removal. She avoided me publicly, but her moves were everywhere. Meetings happened without notice. Documents disappeared. Decisions were made before questions could be asked. The house moved around her will, quiet and efficient. Vivian came to me early that morning. She's arranging something, she said. I don't know what, but she's already spoken to her lawyer. That means it's not emotional, I replied. It's structural. Vivian swallowed. She's building a reason. Yes. By afternoon, the reason appeared. An audit, internal, sudden, focused on Daniel's branch of the business. Alina framed it as routine. It wasn't. It was pressure disguised as process. Daniel saw it immediately. She's forcing my hand. She wants you distracted, I said, and doubting. She wants you gone, Vivian added. Daniel didn't deny it. That night, Alina summoned Charles. They spoke behind closed doors for hours. When he came out, his face was blank. She's activating the files, he told me quietly. If she moves forward, she'll bury you legally. Vivian stiffened. She won't risk that. Charles shook his head. She already has. That was when we decided to move. Not later, not carefully. Now. Vivian knew the office codes, not the safe combination, but the timing. Alina always went to bed after midnight. She never returned to the office after that. At 12:47, we moved. The office opened easily. Alina trusted locks more than people. The safe stood behind the panel, untouched, confident in its secrecy. Vivian watched the hallway. I worked the combination. The click was loud. Inside were folders, names, dates, patterns. This wasn't leverage, it was control. Records of payments, suppressed complaints, legal silencing, every problem Alina had ever solved without witnesses. Then I saw it. A folder marked with my name. Prepared, dated, incomplete. She wasn't reacting anymore. She was executing. Vivian leaned closer. She planned this. Yes. Another folder caught my attention. Daniel's. If activated, it would destroy his career. Alina hadn't been protecting him. She had been owning him. We took only what mattered, evidence, not noise. As we turned to leave, the door closed behind us. Alina stood there, calm, unsurprised. I told you, she said, you don't understand the game. I held up the files. I do now. Her eyes flicked once, just once. You think this ends me, she said. It ends you first. Vivian stepped forward. Not anymore. Alina looked at her daughter. And for the first time, she looked uncertain. Just for a moment. Then she smiled. Let's see who survives exposure, she said. She stepped aside and let us pass. That was the most dangerous thing she could have done. Because she wasn't retreating. She was escalating. Alina didn't try to stop us after that night. She let us leave the office untouched, the files still warm in my hands, her calm more unsettling than anger. That was how she operated. She never fought at the scene of the crime. She fought later, where witnesses couldn't see. By morning, the counterattack began. Daniel was pulled into an emergency board call. His access was restricted mid-meeting. Accounts he'd managed for years suddenly required approval he didn't have. Alina had moved first, exactly as expected. She's making it look like incompetence, Daniel said quietly when he got back. Like I'm losing control. She's isolating you, Vivian said, so when she strikes, you'll look responsible. That was Alina's pattern. Remove credibility before removing people. By noon, rumors were moving through the family network. Subtle messages, concerned questions. Alina wasn't accusing me directly. She was letting others do it for her. I received a message from someone I barely knew. Be careful, Alina says things are unstable right now. Unstable, that word again. Vivian checked her phone, her expression tightened. She's telling people you're emotionally volatile. She's preparing the exit, I said, quietly. Charles avoided us completely. That told me more than words ever could. He was scared. That meant Alina had shown him something new. We reviewed the files again. They weren't just threats, they were timelines. Alina didn't react to problems. She scheduled outcomes. And my outcome had a date. She's planning a legal intervention, Vivian said. Guardianship, or removal under concern. She'll say I'm unstable, I said, that I'm influencing Daniel. And I'll say she's lying, Vivian replied. I shook my head. That won't be enough. Alina had spent years building credibility. One accusation wouldn't crack it. We needed proof she couldn't explain away. That evening, Alina invited extended family for dinner. That was the signal. She never gathered people unless she intended to shape the story. She wants witnesses, Vivian said. Yes, I replied, which means she's about to make a claim. We attended. Alina spoke calmly, about unity, about stress, about concern for Daniel's household. Then she looked at me. We all want what's best, she said, but sometimes that means recognizing when someone is causing harm without intending to. The room went still. Daniel stiffened. Who are you talking about? Alina sighed. I don't want to say this publicly. That was a lie. She's been under pressure, Alina continued, and pressure can make people act unpredictably. I stood. I have evidence, I said, of long-term manipulation. Alina smiled. You see, this is what I mean. I placed the first document on the table. Then the second. Then the recording. The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was recognition. Alina looked around the table and realized something had shifted. She hadn't lost yet. But for the first time, the story wasn't hers alone. The room didn't erupt after the evidence landed on the table. That was Alina's mistake. She expected chaos. Fear. people choosing sides too quickly to think. Instead, they listened. Elinor stayed silent, letting the pause stretch. She believed silence would still work for her. It always had. Daniel broke it. "Is this real?" he asked his father. Charles didn't answer immediately. His delay said enough. "Yes," Charles said finally, "it's real." Elinor turned to him slowly. "Careful." "I am," Charles replied, for the first time. That was the fracture. Elinor shifted her attention back to me. "You stole private documents." "I exposed a pattern," I said. "You violated trust. You weaponized it." Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand what you've started." "I understand exactly," I replied. "You control people by convincing them they're alone." Tonight, that ended. Elinor looked around the table. Some avoided her eyes, others didn't. She stood. "This discussion is over." No one moved. Vivian spoke next. "You plan to remove her, you told me." Elinor's gaze snapped to her daughter. "You misunderstood." "I recorded it," Vivian said. That landed harder than anything else. Elinor didn't deny it, she didn't defend herself, she recalculated. "This family survives because of me," she said calmly. "Without me, everything collapses." "That's what you taught us," Vivian replied, "not what's true." Elinor studied her daughter as if seeing her for the first time. "You chose wrong." Vivian didn't respond. Daniel stood. "You used me." Elinor's voice softened. "I protected you." "You threatened me," he said, "with my own life." That was the moment Elinor lost the room. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Logically. She gathered herself quickly. "If you proceed with this, there will be consequences." I met her gaze. "For you." Elinor laughed quietly. "You think exposure destroys me?" "I think it frees everyone else." She turned toward the door. "This isn't finished." "No," I said, "it's documented." She paused. Then she left. The house felt different after that. Not calmer, not safer. But unstable in a way Elinor couldn't correct. Charles sat heavily. "She'll retaliate." "Yes," I said. Vivian looked at me, but not from the shadows anymore. That was true. Elinor had always controlled the narrative quietly. Now she had witnesses. And witnesses change everything. Elinor didn't return to the table that night. That silence wasn't retreat, it was preparation. By morning, the retaliation began exactly where it would hurt most. Legal notices arrived, formal language, neutral tone, requests framed as concern, claims that my presence was destabilizing the household. Daniel read them twice. "She's trying to force a separation." "She's trying to force control," I said. "If she can't remove me quietly, she'll make staying unbearable." Vivian checked her phone. "She's contacting people individually, framing this as intervention." "She's rebuilding the story," I replied, "with herself as the solution." Charles stayed in his study all day. When I finally confronted him, he didn't deny it. "She's demanding the files back," he said. "She says this ends if you return them. And if I don't, she'll escalate." "How?" He looked at me, publicly. That night, Elinor hosted another gathering. Smaller, strategic, only people whose opinions mattered. I watched from the hallway as she spoke, calm and convincing. She didn't accuse, she implied. She's under pressure. She feels targeted. She believes people are against her. Concern spread exactly as Elinor intended. Then Vivian stepped forward. "She's lying," Vivian said. The room stilled. "She planned this," Vivian continued. "She planned to remove her before any of this happened." Elinor turned slowly. "You're confused." "No," Vivian said. "I was trained to obey. I'm not confused anymore." Elinor's eyes sharpened. "You're choosing instability." "I'm choosing truth." That was when Elinor changed tactics. She smiled. "If that's the case, then there's something you should all know." She turned toward Daniel. "Your wife accessed confidential materials, illegally." Daniel didn't respond. "She recorded private conversations," Elinor continued, "without consent." I stepped forward. "I recorded threats." "Which you imagined," Elinor said. I placed the final file on the table. A timeline, dates, patterns, outcomes. Silence followed. Elinor looked at it once, then she laughed. You think paper wins wars? She asked. No, I replied, people do. She leaned closer. You won't survive what comes next. I met her gaze. Neither will your control. That night, Elinor left the house. Not dramatically, not defeated. She left to move freely. And that was when the real danger began. Elinor's absence was more threatening than her presence. When she left the house, she didn't take luggage. She didn't say goodbye. She took only her phone and control of the narrative beyond these walls. By noon, the consequences reached us. Daniel's accounts were frozen. A legal notice arrived questioning my access to family property. Another arrived questioning my mental stability. All filed within hours. She prepared this long ago, Daniel said quietly. Yes, I replied. She just waited for permission to use it. Vivian paced the room. She's turning this into a legal trap. She wants authority, I said. Once she gets that, facts won't matter. That evening, Charles finally spoke without fear. She's meeting with people who owe her, he said. Judges, advisors, family trustees. Then we move before they decide, Vivian said. We released the files. Not all of them, only the ones that showed pattern, not chaos. Financial manipulation, recorded threats, timelines that couldn't be explained away. We sent them to people Elinor trusted to stay quiet. They didn't. By morning, Elinor's name was being questioned quietly. Not accused, examined. That was worse for her. She returned that afternoon. Calm, controlled, angry beneath it. You made this public, she said. You made it necessary, I replied. You exposed your husband, she said to Vivian. You exposed yourself, Vivian replied. Elinor's eyes moved between us. You think this ends well? No, I said, it ends truthfully. She turned to Daniel. You let this happen. Daniel met her gaze. You forced it. Elinor studied him carefully. Then she smiled. You're all assuming I'm cornered, she said. I'm not. She handed Charles a folder. Inside were signatures, transfers, authority. She prepared contingencies, Charles said softly. She always does. Elinor stepped closer. This family exists because I built it, and I can dismantle it just as easily. I reached into my bag and placed one final document on the table. A resignation. From her own legal counsel. Filed that morning. Elinor froze. Just for a moment. You didn't know, I said. They saw the pattern too. The room went silent. Elinor straightened. This changes nothing. It changes everything, Vivian said. Elinor turned away. Then you'll learn what happens when I lose patience. She left again. This time, the house didn't feel empty. It felt like a countdown had started. Elinor stopped hiding after that. The legal pressure intensified. Messages came through intermediaries, requests framed as negotiations, warnings disguised as advice. She wanted us to blink first. Daniel didn't. For the first time, he stopped responding to her calls. That was when Elinor shifted targets. Vivian's job offer was suddenly under review. A position she had already secured was delayed without explanation. The message was clear. Loyalty had a price. She's punishing me, Vivian said calmly. She's testing you, I replied. Vivian nodded. Then she won't like my answer. That night, Elinor made her boldest move yet. She filed an emergency request citing family instability. The language was precise, clinical, designed to remove me from the house temporarily while things were assessed. Daniel read it once and handed it back. She's trying to isolate you. She won't get the chance, I said. We countered immediately. The recording. The documents. The timeline showing her planning this outcome months in advance. Elinor hadn't expected speed. She had expected fear. By morning, the request stalled. That was when Elinor appeared in person. She walked into the living room like she still owned it. You're dragging everyone down with you, she said to me. I didn't respond. She turned to Vivian. I gave you everything. You controlled everything, Vivian replied. Elinor's eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. Vivian stepped forward. You already regret it, you just don't know how to stop. Silence followed. Elinor looked around the room. At Daniel, at Charles, none of them spoke. That was the moment she understood. She wasn't surrounded by allies anymore. She smiled slowly, then I'll finish this the proper way. She left without another word. Within an hour, the final move arrived. A sealed envelope, court-stamped. A scheduled hearing. Public. Elinor wanted witnesses again. But this time, she wasn't controlling the room. She was walking into it exposed. And for the first time since this began, I knew she had miscalculated. Because she had taught us everything about her strategies. And now, she was using the last one she had left. The hearing wasn't about truth, it was about control. Elinor arrived early. Calm, prepared. She spoke to people quietly, confidently, as if the outcome was already decided. That was her strength. She made certainty contagious. We arrived together. Daniel didn't look at her. Vivian didn't acknowledge her. That unsettled Elinor more than anger ever could. The proceedings began. Elinor's lawyer spoke first. Concern, stability, protection, the familiar words she always hid behind. Then it was our turn. We didn't speak emotionally, we spoke sequentially. Dates. Actions. Patterns. The recording played. Elinor listened without reacting. She didn't interrupt, she didn't deny it. That worried me. Then she stood. You're hearing fragments, she said calmly. Out of context, manipulated. She turned toward me. She entered this family already hostile. She created tension. She provoked fear. The room shifted. She was good at this. Then Vivian stood. She told me people disappear from this family, Vivian said. That was not out of context. Elinor turned slowly. You misunderstood. Vivian met her gaze. You said it clearly. Silence followed. The judge asked one question. Do you deny making that statement? Elinor paused. Just long enough. I deny the interpretation, she said. That was the crack. We submitted the timeline next. Evidence showing planning before conflict, before confrontation, before exposure. The judge studied it carefully. Elinor's composure tightened. Then Daniel spoke. She threatened my career to control my loyalty. Elinor looked at him sharply. I protected you. You trapped me, he replied. That was the moment Elinor realized she was losing the narrative. Not because of documents. Because of alignment. Everyone she had controlled was now saying the same thing. The hearing ended without a decision. That alone was a loss for her. Outside, Elinor stopped in front of me. You think this delays me, she said. It doesn't. It exposes you, I replied. She leaned closer. You don't know how far I'm willing to go. I met her eyes, neither did you. She walked away. That night something changed. Her calls stopped. Her messages stopped. Her influence paused. That meant only one thing. She was preparing her final move. And this time, she wouldn't aim at me. She would aim at everything. Elinor disappeared completely. No calls, no messages, no intermediaries. That silence wasn't surrender, it was recalculation. The first sign came through the business. Daniel's name was removed from a major account without explanation. Authority he had regained was quietly reassigned. Someone was moving behind the scenes. She's dismantling leverage, Vivian said. If she can't control us, she'll collapse the structure. Charles confirmed it. She's liquidating assets, shifting responsibility, cutting ties. She's burning exits, I said, so no one can follow. That night, an article appeared online. Not accusing, suggesting. Anonymous sources, concerned insiders, a narrative about instability, conflict, and risk. My name wasn't central, it didn't need to be. She's shaping public memory, Daniel said, so even if she falls, the damage stays. We responded once, only once. A formal release, verified documents, neutral tone. Then we stopped. Elinor wanted reaction. We gave her patience. 2 days later, Vivian received a message from her mother. Meet me alone. Vivian showed it to me. She's trying to split us again. Yes, I said, which means she's running out of options. Vivian went. She returned an hour later, pale but steady. She offered me control, Vivian said. The house, the business, everything. In exchange for you. I didn't speak. She said this ends if I walk away, publicly, permanently. And Vivian met my eyes. I told her no. That was when Alina lost her last internal shield. The next morning, the final escalation arrived. A formal accusation, filed, public, comprehensive. Not emotional, strategic. She's forcing resolution, Daniel said. Yes, I replied, because she can't control uncertainty. The hearing was scheduled quickly. Alina wanted closure. What she didn't want was testimony. And this time, there would be no silence left to hide behind. The final hearing wasn't framed as a family matter anymore. It was procedural. That was Alina's mistake. Procedures require consistency. She relied on control. Alina arrived late. Not rushed, not apologetic, late enough to shift attention. Her counsel spoke first. Clear, polished, claims layered carefully to sound inevitable. The story she had been shaping for weeks was delivered as fact. Then the questions began. Not accusations, clarifications. Dates didn't align. Statements contradicted earlier filings. Timelines overlapped in ways they shouldn't have. Alina watched silently. Vivian testified next. She didn't argue, she described. What was said. When it was said. How often it was repeated. No emotion, no exaggeration. Then Daniel. He spoke briefly, only to confirm patterns, pressure, threats, conditional support. The room shifted again. Finally I spoke. Not about Alina, about sequence. Events before conflict, decisions made before confrontation, documents prepared before any reaction. Planning doesn't panic. Planning predicts. That distinction mattered. Alina stood when it was her turn. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't deny specifics, she reframed. You're hearing coordinated narratives, she said, built after the fact. The judge asked one question. Why were the contingency documents created before the alleged instability? Alina paused. Just once. Her answer came smoothly, preparation. That word ended it. Preparation isn't response. Preparation is intent. The hearing closed without immediate judgment. Outside, Alina didn't speak to anyone. She didn't look at Vivian, she didn't look at Daniel. She looked at me. You think this is over, she said quietly. No, I replied, I think it's irreversible. She smiled, so am I. That night Charles called. She's transferring everything she can't defend, he said. She's cutting the family out. She's protecting herself, I replied. She's isolating, he said, even from allies. Isolation was her fear weapon. Now it was happening to her. The next morning, the decision arrived. Temporary protections, oversight, restrictions. Not punishment. Containment. Alina's power didn't vanish. It froze. And for someone like her, stillness was worse than defeat. She didn't call after that. She didn't message. She waited. So did I. Because people like Alina don't disappear quietly. They make one last attempt to be remembered. Alina resurfaced 3 days later. Not publicly, not through lawyers, personally. She requested a private meeting. Neutral location, no witnesses, no records. She wants to rewrite the ending, Vivian said. She wants control back, I replied. I went alone. She was already seated when I arrived, calm, composed, as if nothing had touched her. You've made this very difficult, she said. You made it necessary, I replied. She studied me. They've restricted my reach, temporarily. Enough to stop you, I said. She smiled faintly. You assume I need permission. I didn't answer. She leaned forward. You don't win by destroying me. You win by letting me disappear. And what do you get? I asked. Silence, she said. No retaliation, no correction, no erasure. I waited. She continued. You walk away, publicly, you say this was misunderstanding, stress, nothing more. And if I don't? Her gaze sharpened. Then everything that touches you stays unstable forever. That's a threat, I said. That's experience, she replied. I met her eyes. You're out of leverage. She laughed quietly. You think leverage is only what's documented. That was the first time doubt touched me. Then I spoke. I released a delayed archive this morning. She stilled. Independent recipients, automatic distribution. Her calm cracked. You didn't, she said. I did, I replied. If anything happens to me, it finishes. Silence stretched. Elinor leaned back slowly. You planned for me. Yes. She nodded once. Good. She stood. Then you'll understand why I won't forgive this. I don't need forgiveness, I said. I need finality. She paused at the door. You won't get it. She left. That evening, the archive activated early. Not by me. By her. She tried to interfere. It triggered release. The reaction was immediate. Inquiries, reviews, withdrawals. Elinor's world didn't collapse loudly. It froze mid-motion. Vivian called first. People are distancing themselves. Daniel followed. She's being removed quietly. Charles said nothing. He didn't need to. That night, I slept without tension for the first time. Because Elinor hadn't lost control in anger. She lost it in panic. And panic leaves fingerprints. The collapse didn't announce itself. It moved quietly, through cancellations and absences. Meetings Elinor once controlled stopped inviting her. Calls went unanswered. People who had relied on her distance now relied on silence. She noticed. She always did. By the second day, her name was no longer spoken in strategy discussions. By the third, her access was limited to formal channels only. No shortcuts, no favors. That was new. Daniel received confirmation first. She's been removed from oversight roles, temporary but indefinite. Vivian followed. People are pretending they don't remember her involvement. Charles finally spoke. They're protecting themselves. That was how it ended for Elinor, not with exposure, with avoidance. She tried once more. A message arrived late that night. You've made your point. Nothing else. No threat, no apology, just acknowledgement. I didn't respond. The next morning, the house felt lighter. Not safe, just no longer monitored. Vivian stood at the window. She used to know everything. She knew what people allowed her to, I replied. Daniel looked tired. I don't think she understands what happened. She does, I said. She just can't accept it. Elinor moved out 2 days later. No announcement, no confrontation. She left behind locked rooms and unanswered questions. People asked where she went. No one answered. Weeks passed. Legal matters closed quietly, oversight remained, influence didn't return. Elinor tried to re-enter once. Through a proxy, it failed. She tried again, through reputation, it failed. Eventually, she stopped trying. That was the final confirmation. Vivian said it best one evening. She doesn't scare me anymore. Daniel nodded. She can't reach us. I didn't celebrate. People like Elinor don't disappear. They fade. And fading was the only ending she never planned for. The house didn't belong to anyone now. And for the first time, that felt right. Elinor's silence lasted longer than expected. That was unsettling. People like her didn't accept irrelevance. They waited, they adjusted, they looked for angles others stopped guarding. Daniel received a call one evening from an unfamiliar number. No voice, just breathing. Then the line went dead. Vivian received an email with no subject. One sentence inside. You should have listened. Charles found documents missing from a locked cabinet. Nothing critical, nothing useful, just enough to prove access. She's reminding us she still exists, Vivian said. Yes, I replied, and that she's watching. The next move came from outside the family. A former associate reached out quietly. She's telling a different story now. What story? That she stepped away voluntarily, that she was protecting herself from betrayal. She's reframing, Daniel said. And positioning herself as the victim, Vivian added. Exactly. Elena wasn't trying to return. She was trying to rewrite memory. That was more dangerous. People forget facts faster than they forget feelings. We countered once more, not with documents, with consistency. No interviews, no defenses, no reaction. The truth stayed stable. Her version shifted. That difference mattered. Then the message arrived. Handwritten, delivered, no return address. This isn't finished. I folded the paper and burned it. Not out of fear. Out of closure. That night, Charles admitted something he'd never said before. She never believed she could lose, he said, only delay. She didn't lose, I replied, she expired. Vivian exhaled slowly. She built her life on relevance. And now, Daniel asked. And now she has none, I said. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. That was the end. Not dramatic, not satisfying. Just final. Because the most complete defeat for someone like Elena isn't exposure. It's being ignored. Elena never contacted us again. That was how it ended. Not with apologies, not with revenge, not with reconciliation, with absence. Weeks turned into months. Her name stopped appearing in conversations. Decisions were made without checking with her. People who once waited for her approval moved on as if she had never existed. Daniel rebuilt his position quietly. Nothing flashy, nothing public, just steady control returning where fear had once lived. Vivian changed the most. She stopped hesitating before speaking, stopped asking permission for choices that were already hers. She never mentioned her mother unless someone else did first. Charles sold the last remaining shared assets. Clean break, no explanations. Once, a distant relative asked me where Elena was now. I said, gone. That was enough. The house settled into a new rhythm, not peaceful, just honest. No monitoring, no silent threats, no carefully staged concern. One evening, months later, I found an envelope slipped under the door. No name, no return address. Inside was a single key. Nothing else. I recognized it immediately. Elena's office key. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't forgiven. She had surrendered territory she could no longer defend. I threw the key away. That night, I slept without listening for footsteps. Elena didn't lose everything. She lost relevance. And for someone who built power on control, being unnecessary was the only ending she never planned for. The story didn't end loudly. It ended permanently. You have reached the end of the text.